Hey guys, it's Sam with the Oratory Post, the OPOG, here in Tulsa in the wee early morning hours of July 23rd, Thursday, 2020. Uh, so, first off, I'm getting some feedback on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Uh, and that's great. I'm beyond ecstatic. I am one to show emotion, but I'm beyond ecstatic. And as the great Oprah Winfrey once said, "I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters." So thank you for engaging me, and that further propels me to engage everybody else further. And uh, let's get this snowball rolling, and let's get it rolling fast. Having said that, today's topic kind of in my mind was wondering about where the Republican Party goes from 2020. I am not one to, dramatize or one for grandiosity, but I honestly think the Republican Party is at a 1968 moment, a Lyndon Baines Johnson, President LBJ, Civil Rights, 1968 Civil Rights Act, signing, uh, Goldwater, Southern Strategy, right before Nixon, where the parties basically went on their very different paths, where Bill Moyer, who was, I believe, an aide to President Lyndon B. Johnson after he signed the 1964 Civil Rights Act, basically saying something to the effect of, "We have lost the South for a generation to come." Basically, we've lost the South to the Republican Party as a demographic voting bloc. Why did he say that? Well, Lyndon B. Johnson knew the politics of the South. He knew how it went. How casually using the N word was normal. He knew how to play that rough and tough tumble with Southern Democrats who were, let's be honest, racist. They were basically the Southern Party for poor whites, and quote unquote, were not your typical, I would say like Bloomberg type Republican that were very fiscal minded. What does that mean? What that means is in between 1964 and 1968, when you have the Civil Rights Act and everything, starting to roll, you basically had where Southern Democrats who had basically put everything on the line to go along with Lyndon B. Johnson in the Civil Rights Act, basically sort of co-opt the entire message and platform of the Democratic Party, which would be the new Democratic Party, basically. The pro-minority, pro-civil rights, pro-African-American, left-leaning, progressive agenda, especially with the Vietnam War in the 70s, late 60s, well, actually, technically, mid 60s. John F. Kennedy technically is the one who got the ball rolling on that. Lyndon B. Johnson, didn't help, obviously. And Nixon, well, history, you know how it goes. But with Nixon taking the mantle and, with gunning down of students at Kent State and just that whole law and order, anti-hippie or anti-liberal shtick, going, which, by the way, does that sound familiar? Anyhow, but let's stay on topic. Democrats took that basically leap of faith and went that way to leftwards. Lyndon B. Johnson wasn't just accurate in his prognostication; he was actually spot on. Just not one generation, but multiple generations, and in that moment, the Republican Party, with coming up with the Southern strategy with Barry Goldwater, Richard Nixon. Also, if you guys may not be aware of this, but I believe at the time, the head of the Republican Party, literally the head of the Republican Party, was George Herbert Walker Bush. Does that name sound familiar? Anyhow, the Southern strategy is basically a sort of pseudo-political, sociological, socioeconomical science or take on politics where, here, guys, here's a dog whistle for you, and for you. And instead of saying the N-word or this or that, mention, welfare, or mention, other terms that are basically not only derogatory, but they insinuate wherever your mind will take you. And usually it's down a very negative path. It's sort of what a professor once told me about poetry. Poetry being the best poets are the ones that write poetry that can be perceived in so many ways. So that when you and I and others discuss what that poetry is about, the more varying takes and difference of opinions on what it meant is a reflection of how good and thorough of a job that poet has done. Same thing with writing and even I would say even songs that are actually written by the singer, but that's another topic. Same thing with the Southern strategy. It was a sort of poetry, a dog whistle poetry for those that had receptive ears, that were willing to engage in that angle and view of politics, that disenfranchised white working class American blue collar, that instead of venting their frustrations on those who are actually responsible for the stagnation in their wages and promotion, lack of promotion in their careers, lack of optimistic future outlook for their children and so forth. Again, does that sound familiar? Instead of putting that blame and assigning it in the correct direction, the easy way out is to blame the other guy. Well, hey, at least you're not a black guy. Hey, at least you're not one of them. You're not a hippie. You're not a lazy welfare queen. All the insinuations that what that came to mean over the decades, starting out in the late 60s, 70s. And not only was, the Goldwater years, Nixon kind of like the testing ground for that and kind of polishing it up, but Reagan did a good job of that. I mean, that's where you go into the whole denial of AIDS. Does that sound familiar to you, by the way? The AIDS epidemic. Anyhow, then you have even George H.W. Bush using it. I mean, he was there on the scene from day one. And then, the Willie Horton ad, et cetera, et cetera. We can go on. And look where we are now, 2020, with Donald Trump. So, like they say, history does not repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. So, having said that, I truly believe we are at a certain inflection point in American political, I guess, flavoring or political tuning. Democrats have taken, and I'll admit, have taken that gravy train of, that the minority, pro minority, pro African American, progressive leftist agenda particularly well, and I don't mind it, just because the fact that I understand that politics is a game, and let's be honest, Democrats also serve moneyed interests, left and right. The bankers, the trial lawyers, etc. But I feel like if we are going to engage in a dirty game, I want to ride the least dirty horse. I know there's a raging debate going on now about that being called class. I probably should look up the term, but class reductionism or pain reductionism, whatever the term is. We are unfortunately in a, bipolar, in the very true essence of the word, literally and figuratively and literally, of the fact that we can choose between only black and white, off or on, progress or no progress, Democrat or Republican. So I'm going to take the horse that's stuck in the mud, but it's sloshing through the mud. Forward. Slowly but surely. Forward. Not the horse that's, in necrosis, dying, parts of it dying, all the while denying its state of necrosis and rot to the core. Now, at the same time, Democrats have been riding that horse. Republicans have been riding the horse, or not really riding, but kind of spreading what's coming out of its backside all over the place, letting it hit the fan, basically. And what do I mean by that is, I feel like the Republicans took the easy way out. Let's use that ethno-tribal, cultural appropriative fear of others, that tribal instinct that in your gut, let's be honest, deep down inside, we're all proud of what's in our blood, what makes us who we are. If you're Jewish or Muslim or Christian, or you're Anglo-Saxon or Catholic, you're still proud of your roots, your forefathers, the part of the world that you came. I mean, if that's not true, then why are companies like, what is it called, 23andMe, Ancestry.com, all these genome projects where you swab your DNA and they get to tell you, people still have that tribal pride. And that's fine. That's okay. All for it. I'm all for being proud of your tribe, but understanding that we are all global citizens, like one Ronald Reagan once said. So, however, in that same strain of thought, you had the Republicans who basically, I guess, took the horse that, sorry for, beating this horse to death, for lack of a better metaphor, but you have Republicans taking a very, and I'll be honest, I believe the Southern strategy was a lazy but effective, but a lazy strategy. A strategy that was built on basically almost like a steroid. It's almost like somebody that works out and is pumping themselves up with steroids. I mean, sure, it gets you votes, it gets you everything, but look at where we are at here now in 2020. So Southern strategy starts in the 60s. What, 50 years later, 40, 50 years later, what has it wrought? Okay, Sure, it served countless corporate interests, countless wars, countless, oil barons and tycoons. But where are we as a society? What's that John F. Kennedy saying? Where if we don't save the many that are poor, how do the few that are rich survive, or something to that effect? Where has that gotten us now? It's gotten us to the point where society is breaking at the seams, not just medically, not just economically or socially, but and then not only politically. I mean, that's par for the course. That's every country. But now we are breaking at the seams culturally, socially, socioculturally, literally ripping at the seams. And all for what? The Republican Party, even as of 2016, were sort of at that inflection point, but when Trump won, knew that that turn and the decision to make what that turn was going to look like could be offset by 4 years. Let's use, like, who's that guy? Who's that far right wing think tank guy who said, "Give me basically a brain dead president. I just need a guy who can sign my tax cuts and blah blah blah." And I think he's one of those groups that actually took money too from the PPP bailouts or whatever. Anyhow, his name is big in right wing libertarian thought circles. Anyhow, having said that, they found Trump to be basically a useful idiot of sorts. Not just the Russians, the Republican Party too, and the money, the interest behind the Republican Party. What do I mean by that is, let's put more judges and have Donald Trump rubber stamp it. Not that Donald Trump actually believes in what those judges stand for, but hey, get it through. Tax cuts, etc., etc., etc. Now they're at a point where it's just gotten way too far. Was selling their souls really worth all of this? And maybe it was. Maybe for them, this is their job, basically. I mean, like that guy, the OMB director, who then was chief of staff in Mulvaney. If you didn't have money to donate to him, he didn't want to talk to you. Maybe that's really what the job of politics is in America now. But now they are grappling with, literally, where do they go now? It's basically a 1968, 64, Southern strategy, Goldwater. Where do we take this? Where do we take our strategy? What is the strategy? Is it the dwindling Southern strategy? Is it, let's keep going the Donald Trump way and further chisel out our support base strategy? Or is it, let's set ourselves up for the future? We're not going to be fighting these, what I call fake abortion wars, because even when they're in power, they don't do anything about it. Maybe they're going to adopt common sense gun laws. Lots of people actually support that, even Republicans. Maybe they'll try to broaden their base to younger people, to people of different ethnic backgrounds. We'll see. The problem is the head of the party, the head of the movement, has not only co-opted the party, but has perverted the party. Has perverted the party because of a fear of not just political death by tweet, but now we have a president that has sort of de facto control of the purse strings on the Republican Party. So he can show up, tweet you, he can show up, try to primary you, or he can just dither and blather like a dithering, dotard idiot, and kind of bring you down with him. You don't get reelected, you're gone, you're just in the dustbin of political history, has been, who meh, who cares? There's always going to be someone else to replace you. So, what's my point is the Republican Party is at an inflection point. They see not only do they see it, they know it. They know the incompetence of Donald Trump. But they've used that incompetence as a horse to ride to a political advantage, as they see that political advantage not being the political interest, economic, social interest, cultural interest of the American people, but an economic and financial interest of their corporate moneyed backers. Not to say that Democrats don't do the same, but they don't do the same and bring down the whole social cultural fabric of America while doing it. I mean, if we're gonna play in the dirt, let's at least get out of the dirt pile or dirt mosh pit, whatever you call it, dirt swamp. But the Republicans are at a point here in 2020 where even former Republican presidents aren't going to vote for Donald Trump. Even senators in the Republican Party are using, let's be honest, they're using coronavirus as a reason not to go to the GOP convention. But it's not the actual reason. I mean, these guys have been barking about not using face masks up until yesterday? So this whole, I can't, show up to the convention because of no, or you had something, but no, let's stop it. Don't do the whole Tucker Carlson gone fishing shtick here, or the Bill O'Reilly, taking a couple days off shtick here. They're trying to divorce themselves from this president. They know where the polls are. They know where the American people are going, and they know their party is at an inflection point. Where are they going to go after Donald Trump in 2020? Where did the Republican Party go after the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964? If history rhymes, I can only bet and guess that it's going to get worse. Maybe this is one time I don't want that poetry to rhyme. Maybe this is that one time I want the party to go off script, to not make it rhyme, not to make sense, and go against history, go against the trend, and self-correct. Maybe they can reorient themselves on the right path. Now, you could tell me that, well, that's what the Lincoln Project is all about. I don't have much faith there. I don't have much faith in the same people that were gung-ho about the Iraq War, that will not apologize even now about the Iraq War, about their complicity in it. I don't put much stock or faith in that crowd. I see a crowd that's opportunistic. We've got the balls to attack a Republican because Democrats don't have it. So let's do it. Let's bring this president down. And then we can hang it over Joe Biden when he's president to exact and compensate us for the political goodwill that they did for him. So let's take that out of the picture. The Republicans are at an inflection point where they need to reorient themselves in a radically new, different direction. That is the only way to see them surviving. This is not, oh, why did we lose to Obama in 2008 or in 2012 and we have to look at ourselves and have a little whatever it was called, a little get together and figure out things. No, there has to be some bloodletting, political bloodletting. There has to be an excision of this tumor, an excision of this cancerous growth, this metastatic or metastazed, whatever the word is, tumor that not only controls the party, but has perverted the party. Because while I disagree with a lot of Republican Party ideology and tenets, I once believed that they meant well for their voters. They did mean well for many of their people that subscribe to those beliefs. But when he got to the point where Donald Trump became president and they rubber stamped everything he said and did, you know something's not right. Because not only did they do that, but when it comes to that vocal, vociferous support on a personal level, we've heard all the leaked quotes and statements all the way back from 2016. Paul Ryan and those guys joking about, yeah, the Russians do have something on this guy. Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, third guy in command in the chain of command of succession for the presidency, right after the vice president. So when there's such mass perversion and infection and this, there will be a bloodletting, and that will be the inflection point. And when I say bloodletting, I mean that in a political sense, not a physical sense. So don't go there. I'm not condoning or promoting whatever violence, political violence, or all this BS about Antifa that President Trump is pumping up and making stuff up. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about political bloodletting, where they have to come to terms with the necrosis, the gangrenous arms and limbs that have deformed the party and perverted the party. And I trust that will happen. And it will happen in a sense where it is an invited and needed remedy that they will proactively take. The only other option is what happened in the mid-60s and onwards with Nixon and Goldwater and Reagan and Bush. Southern Strategy 2.0 and doubling down on the culture wars, ethno-tribal centricism, ethno-tribal, strife, mix that in with politics, keep people distracted, fighting each other over dumb stuff, while the coffers of this country are looted, while money is literally not just being printed, but it's being printed, given out on a loan basis. But that same loaned money is being used to leverage more money times almost 9 or 10 times. I mean, imagine that. You go into the bank giving you, saying, we'll loan you $100,000 mortgage, whatever, $200,000. Let's just keep it simple, $100,000. And then you get that $100,000 and you're able to then go to that same bank and say, hey, can I borrow $1 million? Oh, yeah, sure. What are you going to leverage? Put down this $100,000 you guys just gave me? Yeah, sure. Good idea. Great. Here's $1 million. Seriously, where can I get a deal like that? That'd be amazing, right? No, that doesn't apply to us. That applies to the guys that are looting the coffers at the top. Well, we fight about Starbucks bathrooms and transgendered bathrooms and making up stuff and making up horrible things about people that are born that way. That is who they are. Embroiling us in ethnic conflict about Mexicans and illegal immigrants and Muslim Americans and Jewish Americans and this and that. More distractions. We'll see. Where does the Republican Party go in 2020? What is that inflection point? What does that entail? And do we see the rhyming of history of the Southern Strategy in the Nixon years and onwards? Or do we see political bravery, political courage, and a realignment, a self-correction of the markets, basically, of the political markets? I would end on that note, but I want to leave you with one last thing. And while I feel it would be most prudent to do as I have prescribed. The truth on the ground, or the ground truth, what's actually happening on the ground, is we have political actors like Lindsey Graham who will go out of his way to laud the president for his golfing time played, or lack thereof, or the shortness of it. I mean, we all sell our souls to a certain bit to get things done sometimes, but man, the last couple years, let me end it with one last thing that maybe my Republican friends out there will like, and it's a quote by Ronald Reagan, and I'm going to give you guys the gist of it. But I remember watching a video where he once said, and imitated to, or alluded to politics being right after the world's oldest profession. He basically called, I think, politics the world's second oldest profession after the world's oldest profession. Oops. Our light went out because we are done with battery. So that's funny. We're talking about Ronald Reagan, and that's a little spooky. And he's dead, and talking about oldest professions and prostitution. Anyhow, he goes on to say basically that politics is the second oldest profession, right after the world's oldest profession, except for basically the world's oldest profession was much more honorable than politics. So I'll leave you on that note. And the light is even telling me to shut up, Sam. All right, I'll do that. I'll let you guys off the hook for today. We're 30 minutes plus. A little more restrained rant today, but I hope it is of some value. I hope it was constructive. I hope you learned something. And I hope I get some feedback from you guys. And let's keep this snowball rolling. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good day. This is Sam with the Oratory Post, the OPOG, here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, July 23rd, Thursday, 2020, in the wee or early morning hours. I'll leave it at that. Bye.